Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 4. It's called Among the Lotus Eaters. So full spoilers for the episode as always. And this is kind of a deep, sort of lore callback episode, which meant it took longer for me to watch because 5 minutes in I paused it and then Googled some things to remind myself of where things came from, because it was all stuff I'd seen, but
I don't know anything that's going on in this episode that's previous.
Oh, this is a deep Star Trek lore. Well, so the planet they go to
Rigel 7.
Rigel 7. So that's actually first mentioned in the cage, apparently. And it's basically, this episode, I think, solves like kind of some mysteries, because there's like mention in that episode of something bad happening on Rigel 7, and it's a place that's referenced again in the Next Gen episode. I want to say it might be referenced in one of the movies, but this is the first time they've actually went into it, like what happened there and what goes on in this planet, and
okay, there's some Star Trek lore that I have seen, I guess, and just locked away and never actually went to Memory Alpha to look it up.
Honestly, like, Memory Alpha was so confusing, because I went to the planet name and it was just like, they tell you like how quick it spins and its orbit and all that, and I'm like, come on, just I just want a summary of like where it's come up before. That's all I want.
Yeah, there's some big time nerds running that show for sure.
Like, I'm not against it being there, but put all that shit at the bottom for the people who want that information will go looking for it. Okay, they'll go looking for it.
It's mentioned in the cage.
I think so. It's not the main planet they're on in the cage, because that's Talos 4 or something like that.
Yeah. Talos 4.
But apparently, yeah, that's like the first reference to this place and something happening. Like, the thing that Pike references in this episode where Spock was injured. Apparently, there's some reference to that in the cage. Now, I've not rewatched it to corroborate that, but that seems to be what they're saying in the internet. When I googled the planet name, there was tons of articles saying Star Trek solves 56-year mystery, and I'm like, okay.
You think it'd be easy to keep track for me, because there's like only 3 episodes with Pike in it. And one's a two-parter. Yeah. Menagerie came up as well, obviously, but that's because, obviously that's just got the cage in it. So, yeah.
It's a thing. But anyway, so yeah, the plot of this episode is that they're sent to this planet, Rigel 7, because some satellite photos or whatever, some reconnaissance images have came up. And would you believe it, their brief interaction those years ago have broke the Prime Directive, because they've seemingly have influenced the culture here, because the satellite shows a giant Starfleet logo like on their castle or whatever it is. So
yeah, it looked like their like garden or something. Whatever. Yeah. In front of the castle, there's like I don't know, some places like to have little labyrinths of a garden. These guys like to have a delta symbol. Yeah,
and they're sent in, so Pike's going down with Mbenga and La'an. Originally also Ortegas, but Ortegas is very disappointed. They do a whole thing setting up with her, like a personal log, that she's excited to go on an away mission, and she's getting...
I thought she was going to be the focus of the episode.
Well, she kind of is in a way. It still ends with her log. She still has kind of the big... Like,
yeah, she's very crucial.
Yeah, she has the big save the day, but she's kind of like... In fact, her whole plot this episode is basically how valuable she is as the pilot, right? And that's like what it gets to. But she's so excited. She's got the hat on. She's basically cosplaying. She's ready to do it. And then everyone's like, "Oh, by the way, turns out there's a lot of debris up here, and there needs to be like a manual pilot to make sure we don't crash." So
I've seen this scene before. I want to say it was like a sneak peek in season 2 or something before the season had started. Because I was watching this and I'm like, wait, I've seen this before. Am I rewatching an episode? And then, but then no, clearly I was watching the 4th episode because I didn't remember anything before that. But
yeah, they probably advertised it with a couple of scenes or something before the season started.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting this to show up in the 4th. I forgot that I watched that, and then I wasn't expecting it to show up so late when I did watch it originally.
Yeah. So that's the premise of the episode. There's also some stuff with Pike and his romance troubles at the start and end, which are there's nothing wrong with this.
It's gross.
You've decided you don't like his girlfriend, Captain Batal, was it?
Captain Winona Earp.
Batal? Winona Earp, yes, very good. Captain Winona Earp. That's exactly who she is. And he pulls away. He says, there's no time for us. I'm ruining your career because you didn't get a promotion. That's his big thing at the start of the episode.
Because of the mean old Vulcan from last week.
And
or 2 weeks ago.
She's upset that he's effectively broke up with her. But of course, the plot of the episode makes him realize by the end that he's a dum-dum, and he comes begging for forgiveness and that they should continue to try. Because
I don't really have much investment in this romance. First of all, I don't like either of them. But also, like, we know Pike ends up, his soulmate is on Tala's floor.
I mean, I would say I'm not invested in this romance, but I think the points they made in this episode were quite good. Like, where he's like, hey, you relate to me, because there's very few people who can actually relate to what it's like to be a captain and have to have all these responsibilities.
I was getting the actor vibe from that, like famous actors always date other famous actors.
Oh, sure, yeah.
They understand the job and that you have to be away for a long time. And
sometimes you have to kiss other people.
Sometimes you gotta have a romance that's very believable, unlike these two on screen. So I can see the meta in there a little bit. But I imagine a lot of people with careers that are, quite demanding try to find someone who's either understanding or the most understanding, which is someone in the same field.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing about farmers. Like, farmers' spouses tend to be farmers. App. Yeah.
Farmers only.
Yeah. Well, if you're getting into that lifestyle, you don't want to just start dating someone and go, oh, by the way, I live a life where I'm up at 4 a.m. every day plowing the field. Like, you have to know you get into that lifestyle.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
So... But, I mean, to be fair to this episode, though, and to be fair to Pike, who you're just poo-pooing at any opportunity, this episode does show that he has a darker side.
I did like that scene.
I bet you did, because he gets unhinged at one point.
And he became a good actor in that scene.
Oh, come on, you're being harsh.
Maybe. I actually believed him, though, in that moment.
I always believe it. But actually, here's the beauty of it, though. If he's repressing anger and he's trying to be the good guy captain, then that feeling of disingenuous that you say you're feeling actually makes sense.
Maybe something will happen. Yeah, maybe there's something there.
There's something he's keeping...
I want to see the season of Dark Pike.
Dark Pike. Maybe we're building up to it.
When we get our Willow turn.
Well, he even says after he has that, after he has his... So I should probably explain the premise of the rest of this. So the three crew that go down, Pike, Laan, and Mbenga, very quickly, like, it's Laan who has this first where she has, like, tinnitus, and then she loses time. Like, she sort of,
like 6 hours.
Yeah, she blinks her eyes, and then she's like, where are we? And it's like, oh, we've been walking from the shuttle for 6 hours. And she's like, wait, what? Okay, well, let's just keep going then. But then, of course, it starts happening to the others. And it turns out on this planet, and there's a reason for it, it's the asteroid or the meteor that hit, a long time ago that's causing this. But every single night, it makes everyone forget everything. And that's what, with the exception of the people who are in this, like, palace that's at the center of all this town.
Because it's like lead line or something.
Yeah, it's got some natural shielding that blocks this effect. Everyone forgets. And it kind of turns into a little bit of almost a dystopian style thing where the people in charge have all their memories, but all of the workers who are like out, like, breaking up rocks and stuff, they get reset every day, and it's like a way to control the population, and they all think it's good because, like, oh, we're free because we have no burdens of memories. So part of the episode is very much that no, your memories, even the painful ones, are important to who you are and all the rest of it. So that's a big thing it gets into. But I explained that because a lot of this episode, Pike and the others have to do what they're doing with no memories of who they are. They have their skills, they have, like, senses, and one of the things that makes Pike realize that he still cares about Winona Earp as much as he does is that he still feels some sense of love when he looks at the present, this, like, relic that he's got.
He knows that it's special. Yeah. Maybe, like, other people don't have... other people have stuff around their necks, but like there's something more. There's a connection with his that he doesn't quite understand, but he knows it reminds him of something, a nice feeling, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the other guy who's there says, yeah, like the forget this doesn't make you forget love. It can't. Like that feeling will be there no matter what. So that's something that's dealt with the episode. But he ends up having to fight back, and it turns out the guy in charge of this place is actually one of his crew from the last time he was here, who's kind of went a bit crazy and is like running the place and was like gleeful about Pike and Co losing their memories and just being like these like horrible workers for the rest of their lives. But he's pissed that within a day, basically, Pike has started an uprising and is coming in with one of the blasters that he's got on his soldiers and takes them down easily enough. And Pike gets angry. Like, he starts demanding to know how to get his memories back. And it turns out just staying in this palace for 10 minutes does it. Like, he just gets them back after a little bit. But there's a moment when he thinks he has to get to like they're being contained in a box or something like that. And he's like, hey, how do I get my memories back? And he starts yelling at him. He starts hitting them with a gun. He threatens to kill him. Like, he gets kind of unhinged.
Yeah, he looks like he's actually about to pull the trigger.
And that's when his memories, I think, start to come back, and he sort of realizes, oh wait. But afterwards,
it's also when the crewman like begs for his life.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because he's very mocking and laughing at him until he thinks, oh shit, I'm going to die. I'm going to beg now. But it's after this where Pike says, no, you're wrong. This place doesn't like. I can't remember what the guy said, but he basically said, no, this place shows you who you really are. This place doesn't take away who you are. It actually shows you who you are. Because, and that's kind of a hint that what Pike was doing there, that anger, that rage that he was letting unleash, that's telling us that that's something that's in him, and it's something that he's keeping contained and subdued all the time. So maybe that's also why him and Spock are such good buddies. They can relate on that, even if Spock doesn't know that.
Maybe. We'll see where that goes. I mean, the previously on Star Trek like made that clear. Like they had the scene where Spock like can't control his emotions.
Oh, you're right. That was there. You're right.
And it didn't really link to anything else in the episode, so it must be trying to remind us of that moment for perhaps this.
Hey, maybe this episode is going to do this episode. This show is, sneakily kind of inching us towards being a story about dealing with emotions and anger and things like that, and like not letting your rage kind of control you. Like now that we've got two characters, hell, arguably three. Like Anne was kind of like her revenge with the Gorn. She's a pretty angry character. Like there's actually quite a lot of characters on this show that have this like inner rage.
Yeah, she also kind of made it seem like there was a bit of peace with her having her memories wiped though every night. Though I can't remember exactly the moment, but I thought she's had some kind of line where the guy was talking about how like you may not want to remember your past, like you don't know what's there and it could be real bad. And she kind of had like a face of like she knew it was, and so there was a bit of peace there. Or maybe there was even a line, I can't remember.
Well, that goes into what you were saying before about love. It's kind of the same thing, just not with love. This is the opposite. This is like she knows she's had trauma, and maybe not remembering is comforting, but she also admits that when she does get her memories back, that it's important that she has them. Like she's still happy she's her, and that's kind of part of it. I did think it was an interesting concept for an episode where the main characters all don't have their memories, and that's the main threat. Is that it's not that the villain's that much of a badass or scary or anything like that. It's purely just how do they work around having to use just their instincts and nothing else.
I actually really enjoyed this episode, and I think it's because it reminds me of like a classic Trek structure of like instead of we're going to a strange new world, but it does have that thing like where Pulaski picks up an aging virus, or like everybody gets the feeling of being drunk, or you're all of a sudden you're caught in a mousetrap and you have to figure out how to escape when the ship's energy is draining when you try to move, and it was one of those kind of things, and literally everybody's affected by it, or like the game and stuff like that. So I like those kind of episodes a lot. Like how are the crew going to get out of this one when no one knows who they are? So
yeah, and obviously we've been talking specifically just about the away team on the planet, but this starts affecting people on the ship as well. And that's quite scary because it's like, oh shit, we're dodging all these like asteroids in this belt. We are like having to pilot the ship. So when Ortegas eventually starts to go, it's like, oh wait, what's going to happen now? Spock doesn't know who he is. Spock had the great idea because they sort of see it coming. Because once, like, I think Uhura is one of the first people on the ship that starts happening to.
And then there's like 3 people in engineering or something.
And they're like, oh shit, this is spreading. We have to deal with this. Spock's got a good idea where he's like, okay, here's some like data tablets. Let's all have our like who we are on front of us at all times, so that if we lose our memories, we can look down and sort of like try and figure some stuff out. But of course, as soon as like they all lose their memories, I think it shows it to Ortegas or something, and she's like, "Well, I can't read this. This makes no sense to me." Which is like, okay, so we didn't predict that they would also lose the ability to read, I guess. I thought that would have been included in the key skills that they keep, but apparently not, because I guess it's more information based than it is just like a memory reflex.
Yeah, I like that Ortegas is the one who sort of figures out to get away from where they are by accidentally triggering the computer.
Yeah,
because she just gets into the turbo lift and is like, just take me home. Because the computer starts interacting with her where everyone else seems to be wandering mindlessly.
Which luckily the computer understood, at least in the context of the ship, what that meant. And when Ortegas kept asking more questions, like she eventually, okay, just follow the blinking lights. It'll take you to the like.
And we know that's a thing in Trek.
Yeah. It's not new at all. So she eventually gets there, and then she just straight up asks, like, "Who am I?" Because at first she asks, because it cuts away and it comes back, and she's in her like quarters, and she says, "Hey, all these rocks keep hitting the ship. Can you do something about that, voice?" And she's like, "No, I can't. But would you like to set a new course?" She's like, "What's that? What's that mean? What do you mean set a new course?" And then she eventually comes up who she is. And she's like, "You're the pilot." And she's like, "Wait, what? I'm the pilot? I fly this ship?" And then she keeps repeating that as she's trying to build up confidence, where she's like, I'm going to have to try and move this ship because otherwise we're all dead. So we get this scene of her walking back up to the bridge, repeating this over and over again. And then she like sits down in the chair. And there's a nice little touch here where she says one of her normal lines when she's like starting to like use the controls. I think she was absolutely or something like that. She says like something she normally says, and it's almost like a little sign for the audience that like her instincts are really kicking in, and she's doing things expertly, basically, and of course saves the day. But for the people on the ship, they basically just get far away enough after she flies them off, and then they all become normal again.
I did like the moment when she's like flying through, and then Spock's like, "I think you should avoid that giant thing we're about to hit," and she instead like uses the phasers to cut the hole in there so that the ship can just go through it because it's just too large of an asteroid. But I couldn't help but think like, I hope somebody remembered to keep the shields up. Or she's gonna take out like half of the saucer section.
That would be unfortunate. I think that's fair to say. I think I appreciated just how simple this problem was, but it was very clear how much it affected absolutely everyone. Like Nurse Chapel, like I can maybe treat a wound, like a simple wound, but like once my memory goes, I can't do anything else. Like I can't, and that's the same in the planet with Omega.
No diagnosis, no surgery. Like all the skills are gone.
Yeah, so. It's a really simple thing to understand, and immediately it's like, okay, everyone's in complete danger. And if anything, the ship was almost more interesting to me than like them on the planet. If only because the local guy who was like telling them a lot of stuff, there was a slight question in my head of like, how does he know all this if he's forgetting things every day? I didn't quite buy that he would know as much as he did.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of propaganda that's coming from the castle also, because people who are wearing the helmets are also protected from the radiation, and they like to put out myths about the culture so that it keeps people like if they have questions, which they probably do daily, it's just something to give them a story and to give them some false hope.
This is what made me think of like dystopia stuff. This was like the idea of controlling information, but in this case, it's so extreme that no one remembers who they are yesterday, except the people
they
in charge.
Created a slave society.
Yeah. Even if it's not something they created, obviously intentionally, but they're taking advantage of it, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because at the end of the episode, of course, the Enterprise beams up the big asteroid that landed and like puts it back into the belt so that the planet will recover and everyone will progress from there. All happy. Luckily, though, the memory thing means that most people. Oh no, because I get the memories back. I was going to say no one will remember.
The memories come back. Yeah.
I was going to say no one will remember Starfleet, but that's not true. They'll remember.
Thankfully, the memories are not wiped; they're just blocked.
Yeah. Although Zach, the one who was down there from the previous starship, obviously they're taking him back home because he needs to leave. He needs to go back to Earth and maybe get some therapy. Find himself. That kind of thing.
He makes a good point where he's like, I can't go back. Like, I've violated the Prime Directive in such a big way. What am I going to go back to? Prison?
I feel like given how he was stranded in a place with very unique circumstances, I imagine it'll be
this was survival.
Yeah, it'll be a bit more lenient than prison, but I suspect his server on Starfleet days are probably over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gonna serve over at Ruapenthe for the rest of his life.
He'll be slinging some Klingon mead or something in a bar somewhere.
Yeah.
Whatever. Actually, the old guy who was telling them all the exposition, I recognized that actor because he was just in the menu. He was like
I looked him up because he looked very familiar.
He was the rich husband in the menu.
It didn't click when I saw that he was in the menu. I was like, well, he has to be the old guy, but like it still didn't click. I thought he was somebody else, a different actor. He just kind of looks like. But he's a that guy. I guess he's in like lots of stuff. He's a just a solid working actor.
Yeah, I remember him that because I always saw that like in January, February, something around then. So it's not been that long, but yeah, I'm sure.
Well, me neither. I watched it like after you did.
Well, I was trying to give you an out there, but fine.
It was a memorable character, but I guess the performance was just very different because it still didn't click.
Whatever, it's fine. Yeah, and I like that. This was probably Ortega's biggest like showpiece episode so far because it kind of reinforced just how good she is at what she does. Even if it does just reinforce her one like job on the show, like she's the pilot and that's what she is. She's good at that, but we don't really know too much else. But to be fair, it did also give us this. No, she does want to go on away missions. She actually gets really excited about going and dressing up and like doing something else. So that's a bit of character. You can't discount that, I suppose.
She is very eager to not just pilot the ship sometimes, be useful elsewhere. Like she wore the hat. She said, "Look, people there wear hats." It completes the outfit.
But yeah, I'm sure she wants to go on adventures. Yeah. I think it's interesting. It's kind of what Pike ultimately says, but these episodes do tend to give you this idea of like seeing who someone really is, and like them realizing that they are connected to each other and that they do care about each other, and we have to try and fight to get out of this, even though we don't really know who each other are. We don't really know, like, because when they realize, oh, we're not with the rest of these slaves effectively because our hands don't look like they've been working rocks for years or months or whatever. Like, Pike's instinct is that he comes from the palace. That he doesn't think, oh, I'm from another planet or I came from outer space. He thinks, no. Oh, I must have come from the palace and this is a mistake. I mean, it's a logical. Well, that's the thing. Like, when Zach laughs at him later for thinking, oh, the memories are in I think it was a crypt specifically, but like a box somewhere in the palace. Like, you get the idea that like he thinks something that stupid because he just doesn't know any better because he doesn't remember anything. Like, that sounds plausible to him.
Yeah, plus Plus, it's Star Trek, so you can kind of get away with telling a story like that. And then he finds it, and it's like some sort of supercomputer or something that's been been putting out this wavelength that this radiation that sounds like a ringing in your ear, but it is actually blocking memory.
Doesn't someone suggest that at one point? What is it that's causing this? Some sort of computer? Someone says that in the episode, I'm sure.
Oh, maybe that's why it was in my mind.
Yeah, so someone says, "Oh, is it a computer? Is it this other thing, or what?" Obviously, they didn't get the exact answer. I'm glad they mentioned the helmets also block out, because I was thinking, there's a reason why all these guards are wearing these like metal helmets. I was thinking that this is Magneto-looking tech. there's something going on here.
There's a little conspiracy theory with the tinfoil hats.
Yeah, I really appreciated like when the memories start coming back in the palace relatively quickly. I was like, you know what, this actually makes a lot of sense, because otherwise it'd be really coincidental that this guy Zach like somehow just never lost his memories even though he'd been down here. So whereas this says no, he probably did, but he at some point came in here and it kind of cleared things up, and he used his knowledge of everything else to kind of take control and take charge and start running the place effectively. So that actually made things make more sense to me. It's just if you look at the whole thing as a setup. So that's very good. Yeah, no, I think this was a tight episode, honestly. I think it had some nice character beats for Peck and Ortegas. Most characters had at least something to do, even if it wasn't like as much as those characters, but they all had a little bit at least.
Yeah, this episode was fun and interesting. It reminded me of classic Trek, which is good.
Yeah. But the good thing versus classic Trek, and this is not to say this is better than classic Trek, but one of the benefits of a modern show is that we get to like address what's happened in continuity a bit more. Whereas
consequences.
Yeah, classic Trek was very okay. We know as the audience that it happened, and you can read between the lines and like sort of think about how these are all knock-on effects in the show, but they don't actually ever address them or bring them up. Whereas, as you pointed out, this had a previously on that just sort of brought up some relevant things without it being like, oh, these are plot points that are going to be important in this episode. Most of them were just like you say, oh, this might relate to this, and that's why they've reminded us of that, as opposed to, oh, this character's coming back, so we have to show them right now. So here they are. But no. No, I had a good time. And as much as it's interesting that it ties into some old Trek lore, it's also, I don't think, really affects anything in the episode if you don't know that. I almost felt like I wasted my time going to look anything
I didn't remember. Apparently it's come up at least 3 times.
Yeah, well, I don't know if the events have come up 3 times. That may just be
maybe
the
just the species or something has come up before.
I think it's the planet, because even when they said the planet at the start, I'm like, this sounds familiar. Like, I definitely have heard this planet name.
Rigel is definitely... Rigel is where they have the green people, too.
Which number?
4.
I don't know, so I can't tell you you're wrong, but if it's right, it's a lucky guess. I could tell from the tone of your voice.
I don't know. But they are I think they're in space at this time, right? So yeah, because they're in Discovery. So if it is okay, so Rigel is the name of a star, like an actual star. So I just assume that's where the planetary system is. And if you say Rigel 4 or Rigel 7, then it's the 7th planet around that star.
Oh, that's what I assumed as well. Makes sense.
Yes. But, so clearly there should be green people on this planet.
Why?
Because why wouldn't they colonize it? Why wouldn't Rigel 4 colonize its own solar system before it goes, I don't know.
Asterisk next to that. Asterisk next to that 4. We don't know it's 4. Tara's been a guess there.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not Rigel. Maybe the green people aren't from Rigel. Maybe I have that wrong.
Does that mean technically?
I do have it wrong because they're Orions. Rigel, the star Rigel is in the constellation Orion.
I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. All those comments
Hey,
corrected
edit that
everything.
out for me, okay?
Oh, no, not even a chance. Does that mean technically we could refer to Earth as Sol 3?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just curious.
I think so.
Yeah, okay. I never really thought about it. I always just assume it happens like that when you're looking at wider space because there's just so many systems and planets. You just we can't be arsed naming all these. So it's just a number. Just the sun plus the number will do.
Yes. And I think even in constellations, like we use that as a mapping guide. To where we'll say like Orion once it gets to like the big stars like Betelgeuse and Orion or Rigel have like names and the other ones around it too. But like if you keep looking, there's a lot of other stars in there. And I think they just have numbers based on their brightness.
Okay.
And the constellation.
What is Rigel a real star?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. So you've redeemed yourself with some good knowledge there.
It's the right knee of the constellation Orion.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe the left knee. It's the right or the left knee. One of those.
That's added immense context to where they are in this episode for me. They're in one of Orion's knees, give or take.
Yes.
Oh dear. Yeah. No, I had a good time. I think episode 1's the only one that's been kind of weak for me. I still quite enjoyed last week's episode. I know you didn't. But I like how varied the episodes have been, and I like how they've each focused on different characters. Obviously Lan got the big spotlight last week. We got Una in episode 2 got the big spotlight in the trial episode. And this week, of course, is a bit more Pike and a bit more Ortegas. I like how everyone's getting a turn.
Yeah,
really...
it's a bit of an ensemble, but like a half ensemble. Not a full ensemble.
Meaning what? Explain what you mean by that.
Instead of everybody having equal time, it's like half of our main characters
Okay,
have like an equal amount of time.
There's an A tier and a B tier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
That's why I'm here. Just to help.
You don't know, like the next episode might focus on, I don't know. Because I would say Ortegas is more B tier, but she got a bit of a elevated push this episode.
She was very important by the end.
Yeah. We may see something similar, First episode was kind of Mbenga and Chapel, to definitely feel like they get some time. If anything, we're probably due a big Spock episode. We're 4 in.
I suspect so.
This is probably time soon for a big Spocky. Next big Spock episode.
Yeah, he should probably talk to his girlfriend.
Is that still a thing?
Fiance.
Is that marriage still happening?
I think so. Because it happens in the original series.
Oh, I did actually, just on like a minor interaction I really liked, is when Ortegas finds out she can't go on the mission, and she's standing there all like upset and like disappointed, and she snaps at Spock a little bit, and Spock's like, I merely presented the information. It's not my fault.
Yeah, it's his way of saying, don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
In a very Vulcan
It's
way.
like, Spock, learn when to leave people alone, damn it. And he's like, I am working on that. And then he just stands there.
Yes, I like Spock in this too. And I like the interaction on the bridge with Ortegas when she says, just trust me. And he's like, I do. Like, because that comes from a real feeling.
Yeah, he feels something that says he can trust her, even if it's not something that, logically he can...
Doesn't remember her.
Yeah. It's right, because he says a couple of times that feelings aren't facts. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know any facts. So the feelings are the best thing you've got to go on, Spock. So
yep.
Tap into it. Actually, at one point, there's a line that I liked as well where he says, I think I'm suffering from the same cranial... wasn't displeasure, like... but it wasn't pain. It was a fancier word than pain. Discomfort. It may have just been discomfort, but is it the same cranial discomfort as you are? He phrased it in such a Spock way. Yeah, it was a headache. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was another line like that as well in this episode where, it was the same scene where Ortega's early on that ended with her disappointment, where he's describing celestial bodies, and she's like, why don't you just say like 2 moons? It's like, Well, I could, but that would be leaping to a conclusion, and they're not quite classified as moons yet.
Falcons are the best.
Oh, dear. Yeah, I have a good time. I think it's entertaining. I still think I like the trial episode the most of the season so far, but there's not much in it. I think this one's pretty close.
Yeah, I think I like this one the best so far.
That's fair.
Honestly, like the trial is probably going to be one that people look back on and talk about and say that was a really great episode. But I don't know. This one was just more fun and not in like the usual kind of bubblegum fun, but like, you know.
No, the only maybe slight, other than the exposition man feeling like he knows a little bit too much given the premise that he's in, I would say the only slight critique is that there are some times where I could kind of feel the fakeness of the surroundings when they were out in like wide snowy like plains.
I kind of liked it though.
I could kind of feel like where the little set ended and where the green screen like beyond. Like obviously
I'm okay with that. That feels like Star Trek.
In a weird way, it does feel like old school Star Trek because they did have tiny sets and then just a backdrop.
It kind of looked like there was matte paintings behind them at some points.
Almost. So I appreciate that it kind of harkens back to that. But I do have to point out that I did feel the fakeness of it a little bit.
There was one landscape shot where you got like a red sunset and like there's a castle there and everything was all smoky and gray and red. I'm like, ooh, this is pretty metal.
Oh yeah, that's the main thing that comes from the cage. Apparently Pike at one point in that hallucinates or dreams like that visual of the castle from this planet with that sunset.
Oh, okay. It's during his hallucination?
Yeah.
Oh, when he sees was it Vina as a Orion lady, a green lady?
I mean, I didn't go back and look further. I just that was the main thing that apparently referenced that in that episode. So clearly something that he felt traumatic about at the time because he left some crew behind. Which, by the way, I noticed this at the start. See when like they bring up who died on that mission, the name in the middle was C. Plummer, which was clearly a reference to Christopher Plummer.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed the if they flashed away too quickly, I just noticed the one in the middle was C. Plummer, and I sort of went, that bit, that's intentional. I don't think that's an accident.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah, nice little
Not
touch.
after they had his daughter on Star Trek Picard.
Yes. But there you go. That is our thoughts on this Strange New Worlds. Pretty good.
When are we getting
Peck's
the
a great
crossover
character.
episode? I want the crossover episode.
Well, there's only 10 episodes. We're 4 in, so you
That's the best episode of the season.
You've not seen it yet. You can't say that. You got a 1 in 6 chance that it's next week. I'm sure there's a preview for next week's out already. You could probably go check if it is the next one. But yes, next episode's called Charades.
I think if you watch the Ready Room with Will Wheaton, I think he plays a scene from the next.
Oh really? Okay.
Or that show does.
Well, yes. I thought some interesting development here for Pike, and I'm looking forward to seeing
I did too.
where that goes. Tara being positive. I'm not used to that on this show. I'm used to.
Oh, come on. I like the show.
I'm used to Tara being all like evil and miserable and like
Dark Tara.
Yes. Mirror Universe Tara usually on this show. But okay, there you go. Let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments. Like, subscribe, all the usual things. You can of course support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help keep it coming. But that is the show, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We also appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?